Alright, so this video is going to cover the loading and scaling of plans, and also just a couple of tips to make the whole process a little easier. I'm going to start by clicking this green plus in the top right, and it will say either drag the PDF files in or click to go and find them, which is what I'm going to do. You'll see I've got the plans in here, the demo plans that is, from a previous video. And a quick note is if you've got multiple files, so it might be that you've got architecturals and engineering, for example, completely fine. Select multiple files at once and it will merge them together when you bring them in. In this case, I'm just grabbing the one page, or the one file to be more precise, and it will list the name here, and then it'll ask the question of whether you want to use high quality. Generally, I tell people don't worry about this unless you have ginormous A1 plans or you're doing a whole subdivision. The other exception is if you've got plans that are really colored and you want them to stay that way, then this is another case that you might want to consider using high quality, because by default we turn the plans back to black and white. That said, if you load plans and you notice straight away that they're not high quality enough, you can always come back and load them again, so it's not really a big deal either way. I'm going to go import and it will crunch them together. Once it's done importing the file, it will come up with a message saying, do you want to scale the plans now? And think of this as saying, do you want to calibrate the plans now? Because the scaling step for us is really where BuildXact is just figuring out how big everything is. Personally, I say no or cancel to this step. I will have to scale them at some point, but the reason I go cancel at that point is I would much prefer to do some housekeeping and clean the pages up. So things like rotating and naming of pages, even removing pages that just don't need to be here. I find it much easier to do all of this before I start scaling and drawing on them versus after. So I'm just going to say floor plan for this one. I've used this little blue pen here to name them, and I can go through the different pages or use the arrows to scroll through them. So elevation. Naming them is a fantastic thing to be doing. More than anything, it's just helping you find them for later on. But another side benefit is if you are going to be sending the plans to other trades, which you have the option to do, it also helps them because it'll have the name on it at that point too. So once I've done my kind of cleanup and housekeeping, I then go into this scale plans button here, and you've got three options. You've got, hey look, I just want to scale this one page, or I want to scale everything that's not yet been kind of calibrated, or I want to go ahead and just scale the entire lot. And my tip to people here is that the quickest way to get a set of plans scaled is to scale all of them together, and then if there's odd ones out, go back and fix those ones. So a great example of this might be you have a set of plans and you've got 9 pages at 1 to 100, and you've got a site plan which is 1 to 200. The quickest way to fix that or to tackle that one would be to scale them all the same based on the 1 to 100 scale, and then go and fix the odd page out, which is that site plan at 1 to 200. It's so much quicker than doing them individually. And I'll go through with that in mind. So scale all plans. As this is the first time we've kind of seen the plans loaded in, I'll just go through a couple of tips as far as moving them around and zooming and that kind of thing. So I've got a wheel on my mouse, and I'm just using that to zoom in and out. You can also use this blue dot over here, which is a lot quicker, and I use this just because I find the other one a little slow for what I want to do. As far as moving them, I'm clicking and holding for it to be dragging this page around. So thinking of it as almost grabbing a hold of the page and moving it, and the system will be able to tell the difference between you doing that, so clicking and holding, and you doing a single click, which is you telling it, hey, I want to actually drop a point here. So once I've moved it up to where I want to be, I'm going to follow this first step here, which is, hey, draw a horizontal line on the plan below. And what it's roughly translating to is find the longest horizontal line you can. So overalls are fantastic. And highlight that. So I'm clicking once at one end and dragging it to the other end. Notice that I didn't need to be able to see the whole thing in one go. going to the other end and clicking again, just a single click that is. It'll ask me for the length of that line, and I'm just telling it exactly what that dimension is, and it's using that to calibrate itself. If I've made a bit of a mess of it, I can use cancel at this point and it'll give me the crosshairs back to draw another one. But I'm going to put it in and say next. And it'll give me another step, which is, hey, do the exact same thing, but for a vertical line. And the reason we do two is really just to A, check the plans are square, and B, it actually does the scale in two directions. So if we ever get plans that aren't perfectly square, or they've been skewed a little bit by photocopying, or maybe they've even been drawn on graph paper, that's perfectly fine. It can still make sense of it, and it can calibrate those plans, and you'll be able to use them with our software too. So I've just done that one, 11:260, and I'm going to hit finish. So this is the last step, and it's popped up here saying all plans scaled successfully. So it's just scaled them all based on being 1 to 100. If I needed to, for example, correct this individual page, which in this example I don't, but let's just go through it so I can make the point. If I needed to correct this page, I would pick it out of the list and go back to the scale menu and say rescale this plan. And that's for the example I gave before of the site plan, where I need to fix that particular page up. I can just rescale one individual page. Also worth a mention is the copy scale button. Really handy if you ever need to be able to copy scale from one page and paste it to another one that's the same scale. You can do that. That can be particularly handy if you bring in revisions, and rather than going through and manually rescaling them, you can just say, yep, it's the same, and copy and paste the scale across. Final little point is just the cog button on this screen, and you'll notice cog buttons on pretty much all the screens through BuildExact. I just want to make a quick mention because we get questions about this a lot. If I want to be able to print plans out, and particularly print out plans once I've drawn takeoffs on them, how do I do that? Within this cog here, there is a print button here and also an email button. So you can go in and choose to send takeoffs or print takeoffs or whole plans out of this page. So that's how you do it. From here, we'll move into the estimate costing screen, but for now, that's the plans and takeoffs.